but I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Please welcome Duncan Forbes. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. I'm going to try and practice a bit of narrative leadership now. We'll see how successful I am. But I am actually, yes, I did reflect on the title as I was thinking about what to say this morning. And learning from experience is the title. And I thought to myself, well, what are these people going to say when we haven't even actually come in, we haven't actually taken over any stock, we haven't actually got any staff? And are you here to learn from me, or are you here to learn from us, or am I here to learn from you? Or where's the learning in all this? Because I don't subscribe to the model of the speaker giving you all the learning. It just doesn't work that way. It's more of a collaborative exercise, really. But we do have some experience, and I thought, so I've come here, I suppose, to share what I think we have learnt in the process of creating Bronavon. And one of the exciting things about creating Bronavon, which is to say coming into existence on the 31st of March, well, it's in existence, but it's actually taking over the stock on the 31st of March, is that we started with a blank sheet of paper. And so tenants were able to shape the organisation that they wanted to be their landlord, and to some extent too, the staff were able to shape the employer that they wanted to be their employer. So that's a pretty unique and fantastic opportunity that most of us don't have in any part of our working lives, or indeed we don't often set up and create voluntary organisations or community groups where we can shape it in that way. But we've had an opportunity to create an organisation which will have 400 staff, 8,000 homes in that way, and that's been a really exciting process. And I suppose I would say, and some of the board members are here, and some of the tenants are here too, that during that process we've learnt a huge amount about a great deal, and I'll share some of that with you, but there's much, much more obviously beneath the surface. And one of the things in particular around leadership, just going back to what we've just heard, was around a completely different style of leadership that's needed to lead an organisation or work within an organisation that is involving people in a genuine way. And that is all about risk-taking, because people used to come up to me during the process of stock transfer and say, is everything under control? And my answer would be, no, of course not. But actually they expected it to be. I was accountable for it to be under control, and people were expecting timetables to be delivered. But actually, because we were involving people, the process was at numerous stages completely out of control. I had no idea what the outcome of discussions was going to be. So it was a very different style of leadership. I learnt a huge amount during that process, from moving from being the borough solicitor, feeling I was taking the risk of 6,000 staff and thousands of transactions on my shoulders, and having to manage risk on behalf of the organisation, which was a command and control organisation, to a state of complete uncertainty. And that was very scary. And it is scary. I think that's one of the things we need to understand about that form of leadership. It's a scary process, but also fantastically rewarding. But I know that a lot of the managers, and I use that word advisedly, within the future Bronavon are very scared of moving into that style of leadership. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about leadership specifically. I'll talk about what I'm going to talk about. So in the process of, we have learned from experience. I think we've learned from experience. We're always going to be learning from experience. We'll learn, I hope, a bit later on from your experience too. But we've also learned from other organisations. In the process of setting up Bronavon, we did a lot of work around what had happened in the past. We went up to Preston to talk to Preston Gateway, because they're a kind of community mutual equivalent in England that was off the ground, although they were in the early stages when we started setting up Bronavon. We also did some learning, and places like Kirklees have been doing community involvement and engagement as a council 20 years ago. They've had a track record of involving communities quite successfully. A model that was shaped and chosen by tenants, primarily tenants. Insofar as there are issues around staffing, it was shaped and chosen by staff. And Bronavon belongs to its membership. So that's the model we've created. We've got a strong membership, 387 members of Bronavon, and we are about to start recruiting members. We haven't actually started recruiting them yet, but that was the number of people we signed up as a result of the engagement process that led up to creating Bronavon. So it's our model. We're not trying to pretend it's the best model. It's certainly the model that we want to use. And it's worth reflecting that we did have a unique opportunity. I've already said that we started with a blank sheet of paper to setting up the way we're doing business. We had information about what people thought, but we went out and got a huge amount more. And we spent, again, hours of time talking to tenants and talking to staff. We had your normal annual tenant survey, which tells you a little bit about what's important to tenants, but really don't get under the surface to any great extent. They're a fairly superficial way of finding out what 8,000 tenants want. We did 3 phone surveys of samples of people. Again, very interesting statistical information. Tells you the standard stuff. They're interested in antisocial behaviour and grounds maintenance and repairs, etc., etc. More importantly, and much, much more importantly, we did 3 home visits to tenants. And if you ever want to listen and or talk to and or communicate with tenants, home visits have absolutely no substitute. They were absolutely fantastic success. Not only did tenants give us hugely positive feedback about the fact that people were bothering to go and talk to them at their own houses rather than expect them to go to a meeting or fill in a form. But if you think about certainly in Torvine, you think about the group of people who are our tenants, many of them have literacy problems of one sort or another. So the oral communication is far more effective as a way of doing business. We did, in 1 week, we visited 8,200 homes, some of them twice, with 120 staff out on the doorsteps, from myself all the way through the organisation. And again, it was about everybody going out. We had finance people out listening, talking to tenants. The first time they'd ever spoken to a tenant, some of them, someone very scared about being on their own, knocking on a door. What's going to happen? This tenant might bite me. And the housing officer's saying, don't be ridiculous, we do that every day. So, all sorts of discussions and debates went on, and it really opened up. And the staff, we went out in the weather we had yesterday, the wind in Blenavon, it was about 60 miles an hour, and people could barely stand up. It was pouring rain, torrential horizontal rain, and people came back with huge smiles on their faces, sort of laughing hysterically because they were drenched, and having spoken to 100 tenants, and they were absolutely over the moon. So, home visits, fantastic way to engage people. And very much about all the people in the organisation as leaders and managers getting out and talking to tenants. We had 800 tenants by the end of that process, and that was how we got them from the home visits, signed up to get involved. And I think this is important because one of the things that came out from the process was that people wanted to get involved collectively to influence and shape and exert some power in the process, not individually. Because the whole public service agenda has been about treating people as customers, as individuals with rights to make individual choices, and that wasn't the way that people were telling us they wanted to do business in Torvine. And I'll come back to that in a second. So 487 of that 800 didn't just say they want to get involved, they actually came along and contributed ideas at sessions we held. We had many more people coming to sheltered housing, coffee mornings and so on, and many other individuals corresponding by phone or by whatever.